And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Bow Wow Bill live stream. I have my buddy Tyler Muto with me. And bear with me just a second while I share this. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing well. Bear with me also while I share this.
Yeah, everybody who's watching, take a moment to share this, if you don't mind. Let's get this shared far and wide and get this information out to as many people as possible. And here we go. I'm going to share it to my Facebook or my personal page, and I'm going to share it to Dogs Chatting as well. There's one. And Tyler is on the other side of the country from me. He's located in Buffalo, New York, and he has Canine Connection. Do you want to do a brief introduction, Tyler?
Sure. Sorry, I was just typing. Okay. I'm done. I'm shared. We're good. Okay. Close this off. Now I can do the introduction. Sorry about that. Hi. I don't know what to introduce myself. Yeah, I don't know. What do you want me to say? Ask me questions. That's a better way for me to introduce myself.
Well, how long? I mean, you were at Canine Connection,
Yep. Yep.
and what is Canine Connection?
So Canine Connection is a dog training center. We specialize in primarily working with families and their dogs and helping them live well together. We do a lot of behavior work, um, and a lot of like really providing access to proper enrichment and fulfillment for dogs, so that they can be happy and live well. We do everything from puppy classes all the way through basic obedience, but of course, like our board and train is mostly um, behavioral problems. We do a lot of aggression rehab, a lot of socialization, things of that nature.
So, what got you working with dogs? What?
Um, it was one of those things. I was coming out of college. My degree is in philosophy. I
Really?
was uh, was to get my PhD. I wanted to be a professor, and
Really?
yeah, that was my original deal. And I was taking a year off, and just started getting really into learning about dog behavior. I always had a dog. I had a dog all through college. I lived by myself. I was like your typical, like I was a hermit philosopher. I had a beard, not quite as long as yours, but longer than mine is now. I lived in a one bedroom apartment with my dog, um, and that was basically it. Like all through college, and in my year off, I was working for a business partner of my mother's, and one of my jobs was taking care of the dogs, and was taking the dog to a kennel a lot. Kennel was owned by a dog trainer. I was like, wow, people actually make a living doing this. And
Right.
sort of the rest was history. I ended up apprenticing for her for a little bit, and then ultimately starting my own gig.
Interesting, man. And I often tell people dog training is an art and a science.
So
And I'm a huge fan of philosophy myself, so I think that's interesting that that's where you started. And but you've always had a love for dogs. Have you always had dogs as a kid?
yeah, always had dogs as a kid. They were always, um, I was always, relatively responsible for them. Obviously, my parents did a lot of the stuff, but like the
Right.
dog slept in my bedroom at night. And I did a lot of the feeding and walking and stuff like that. So I was always very closely bonded to them. I remember when I was a young kid, we had to put one of our dogs to sleep. He collapsed his trachea because he was a beagle living in the city, which is, part of the problem. But he pulled so much on leash and he collapsed his trachea. We had to put him to sleep. And
Uh,
it was devastating to me. I was a wreck for like the longest time. Like I was just so emotionally affected by it. So I've always had a really deep connection to dogs. And then, it's like one of those things. Like your high school guidance counselor doesn't tell you that you can make a good career as a dog trainer. So, you know, it's like one of those things. Once I saw that people were doing it, and it wasn't just on television, like people in my hometown were like making a good living as a dog trainer, it sort of blew my mind. And
yeah.
and then the rest was history from there. I just sort of dove in head first at that point.
So was that in Buffalo as well?
Oh, it's Rochester, which is basically the next city over. We moved out here about 10 years ago now.
Okay. Cool. And then you just started Canine Connection when you moved out there 10 years ago. Has it been up
Exactly.
and running?
Exactly. Moved here. At first, I wanted to find a trainer to work with. I didn't feel quite ready to go out on my own yet.
Okay.
but I was really interested in behavioral work, and nobody out here was really doing it to the extent that I really was into. Most people were like, really good agility trainers that sort of dabbled in like helping you solve your dog problems. But when you actually looked at what they were doing, I just wasn't. It wasn't really for me. They were really good at some of the other stuff they did, but the behavioral end I felt was lacking a little bit, and so I just decided to kind of start my own thing. Way sooner than I probably should have, but you know, it just was the way it was, and that was that.
What do you think is lacking when you say that you see stuff that's lacking in behavior work, and you kind of you stepped up to fill that void. What is there anything in particular that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, I think there's so many different aspects of dog training and dog behavior, and it's hard to be amazing at everything, right? And so, just most of the trainers around here that I found, at least, I'm sure there was people that I didn't know about, right? But the people that I actually was able to kind of check out, um, they mostly were like competitive dog trainers, right? And so the behavior stuff was just kind of something they did on the side to kind of keep the cash flow coming in, but it wasn't really their passion, and so they weren't really doing it that well. Like they were kicking ass in their like, I'm going to teach you how to do AKC obedience. They're like totally kicking ass there,
Right.
but they just weren't doing that great of a job in the behavior work. Now, trust me, I can go down a rabbit hole of like what's lacking in the world of dog training and behavior, but that was kind of what I saw back then. It was just I wasn't into competition. That wasn't where my heart was. I was into helping people live with their dogs, because that's for me. Dogs were companions.
Right.
They were part of our family, and that's what really spoke to me. Um, and so it just, it just didn't click with what was going on or with what the other facilities were really doing. And so I just wanted to do something of my own because of that.
I just got a comment from Jen for like, oh man, my computer keeps freezing. Must be because you guys are so cool. Here, I got to put that up on the screen here. And if you can see the screen, Tyler, if you have your laptop or something open, then you can see some of the comments as they come in.
Yeah.
Eric Blanc just says, "What's up? Great to see you guys. Great thank you for joining us, Eric. And if you have any questions for Tyler or I, ask them in the comments, and we'll try to get to them. So cool, man. I'm liking getting to know you a little bit more here, man. It's interesting. So you were also saying that you started a little bit too soon, possibly.
Yeah.
Would you speak on that?
I think it probably didn't feel too soon for me then. I was really cocky back then, a little bit overconfident, and made a lot of mistakes because of that. But I think especially today, everybody wants sort of like instant access to everything, and you take a 5 day or a 3 week or a 6 week course on dog training, and off you go to start your own business. Um, I was apprenticing for a woman for the better part of a year. Um, and she mostly did behavioral work. It was a facility in Rochester, mostly board and train, mostly behavioral work. So I had a lot of experience, but um, I was still very young, and I don't know. I think the idea of like the apprenticeship is undervalued, especially today.
Right.
I think it's a really worthy model when it comes to any sort of craft like this. So when I say I apprenticed, I didn't get paid. Right, I went there, and it's like an old man story, like uphill both ways in the snow with no shoes. But like literally, it was an hour and a half drive for me, um, and I did that 2 days a week, for quite some time. And I would just go, and initially, was under supervision, and eventually it was just sort of like go work these dogs. And I learned a lot, but there's just dog training is so complex, and
Right.
did a lot of stupid stuff when I was just starting, and I got bit a lot, and you know, I don't know. I mean, are you ever really ready? I don't know. Maybe I was totally ready to do it on my own. I mean, it
Yeah.
was again, but in hindsight, I was definitely overzealous, and um, I didn't make a lot of friends in the dog training world in Buffalo when I first moved here. And in hindsight, like I get why. Like I was this young dude that moved to town, and I was like, I'm gonna conquer the world through dog training, and I mean, I thought I was the shit, you know. And I probably, if I were to meet me from back then now, I would think I was a total jabroni.
Jabroni.
Yeah, I get it why people were like, "Oh, Tyler, that dude sucks." Because, I mean, they didn't really know me as a person. All they saw was the sort of this cocky persona that I was putting out into the world because I wanted to sort of, prove
Yeah.
how great I was handling the most dangerous, difficult, crazy dog. That's how I made my name. Right? It was like, oh, okay, all the dogs that no other dog trainer will work with, I'll take those.
Yeah.
And that's really dangerous. That's dangerous stuff, right? Like that's probably really when I say I wasn't ready. I mean, it's like if you're going to be just starting out that early on, it's like do obedience training, take like some unruly young dogs, but like I was taking really dangerous dogs on, and I don't really advise people to do that early on in your career. I'm lucky. I mean,
Dangerous. It's dangerous, man, and that's it. Is like people don't realize that these dog bites, it's not just a bite; it's a bite from a bacteria-ridden.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible. I mean, I've had infections from dog bites that are scary, man, and sometimes they're down to the bone,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's
Muzzle.
not.
I was super because I was trying to be a tough guy, so I didn't use muzzles enough, and I mean, it did so much dangerous stuff. Like it was just stupid. But I also didn't have like it wasn't like today where you have Facebook and YouTube, and that wasn't available back then. And so you're kind of I was in this city. I didn't really know anybody. I was sort of on my own. I didn't really have any guidance. I was just winging it. You know what I mean? Like literally just winging it, and
Yeah.
sort of and bear in mind where I worked, I never did private lessons. Like I just showed up, the dogs were in board and train, it was a controlled environment. One of my first bites happened during one of my first private lessons. I walked into a house with like a super sketchy German Shepherd, and I didn't know what kind of safety precautions to use. So I walked in, the dog just walked right up to me, sniffed my hand, and then just clamped on.
Yeah, dude.
Like, one of my first ever. And of course, I'm thinking I was super young. I was like 24 maybe at the time.
Okay.
I'm like I was really self conscious about wanting to come across as like really professional, and so I like wrapped up my hand in like a dish rag they had, and just like carried on, like getting totally queasy and like because I'm a wuss when it comes to that stuff. Like in reality,
Me too, dude. Blood, and I'm almost on the floor every time.
so I'm trying to like hold it together and like just power through and just like I had my little clipboard that I used to take notes on, and
Like, you're holding it like this.
it's just ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. Um,
uh,
you live and you learn. I mean, the thing is, like, there's some lessons you only learn by screwing up, and that was, I think, one of the reasons I've sort of gotten to where I am today was because of that kind of a start and not having supervision. It
and luckily, you weren't hurt worse.
grew up a lot. Like I made a lot of mistakes, um, and like not like luckily nothing terrible ever happened. Like no one
Right.
got seriously hurt in my care. Um, I never got really that badly. I took some decent bites, but nothing like I never ended up in the hospital or anything like that. But that's like it's luck. Like don't
Yeah.
do it. It's not wise. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, man? We got a lot of comments here coming. So let me here. So Shonda, so glad to get a chance to catch you guys. So inspirational. Dawn is my beautiful wife. She gave me a little emoji. Hi from Dallas, Carrie DeBoard. My dog trained at Canine Connection.
That's right.
Fantastic.
She drove her dog from Texas to Buffalo to train with us. Like she hopped in a car and drove with the dog from Texas to Buffalo. And if I'm not mistaken, Carrie, it was like all one shot too, like just straight.
Dude, that's like she's ready. She's ready for this dog to do whatever it takes. You know what I'm saying?
She was doing some rescue work, and it was a tough situation, and she was committed, man. And like those are the kind of people that we love working with. Those like so committed to the dog and doing and just doing what's right. And I mean, she just above and beyond. It's just amazing to have people like that out there.
Dude, I had a guy that his dog got sick, and he was out on his ship, like out in Puget Sound or out in Pacific, and I gave him a call, just let him know what was up. He came and immediately came back, got his dog, took care of him and everything. That's what I love, because That's what we're all about. We trade our lives to help people better understand these animals, and so the animal can get as fulfilled out of the relationship as the human counterpart. And so we love it when we see people that are passionate about it as we are. And let me see, we got people from we got Switzerland in the house, we got New Zealand, Seattle, and so all around the world we're being broadcast right now. And that's what's cool about this technology. You know, it allows us to, in a push of a button, literally reach all corners of this planet. So we have Doug Henninger asks, talk about why dog rescue volunteers are so notorious at not having dog handling skills. Why do they seem to equate training with punishment?
Well, I mean, I think handling skills. There's a lot of people that want to volunteer their time, do what they can, and I think access to good training information is not always easily accessible for people, or they don't know where to go to find it, or they've gone to training classes but they just haven't been that great. Um, Everybody has a really awesome trainer in their area. You know, I think dog owners in general don't have phenomenal handling skills. That's why people like Bill and I have jobs. Um, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's our job, is to educate them. And so, I mean, I guess why don't they have great handling skills? Because maybe they just haven't had the opportunity to learn yet. And but you know what? Like they're out there, and they're volunteering their time and they're helping. So, like rock on. They seem to equate training with punishment. I mean, I guess that like I know rescues that don't. I guess I don't know how to answer that.
Well, I think they just have a misconception of what a fulfilled dog looks like, and I think that in somewhere in human history we got these dogs that are manic and crazy, and they think that that's the only time that a dog is happy.
Yeah.
And when we make them, like I have two dogs right here on the floor that are just lounging, and I've had people walk up and say, "Oh, they're so sad," or whatever, and it's just interesting that, and I get what he's saying, and I think that it's just a misconception, and they're coming to you to be educated, and that's our job as professionals.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe what Doug is alluding to is I do think there's some, and I don't see, to me this isn't like rescue volunteers though, because I don't know. I mean, most of the rescue volunteers that I interact with, I guess maybe are different. I don't know, but I know there's people in the world. They're generally not very dog savvy people. That like if they see a dog being trained, they think that like because you're training it, you're taking away that dog's like freedom or something. Even if it's just like clicker training, right? They just see the fact that like the dog is having to sit still or whatever, um, and they think that that's mean. But I guess those kind of people I just can't relate to. But I don't, me personally, I don't see that coming from rescue volunteers. I see that coming from like just like oddball people on the street. Um,
Yeah, well, it's a connection. They're trying to think with their emotions.
yeah, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, at least here in Buffalo, we've got like amazing rescue volunteers here in Buffalo. Shout out to Buffalo dog rescue people, because we have some like really, really kick ass um, dog rescues here, and the volunteers that work for the rescues are just like, man, these people, they're like inspirational. They're just amazing, amazing people. So I guess maybe it's maybe it's different worlds where where Doug is. I don't know, but the rescue people I interact with are like, I mean, I admire them. Like they're just awesome. They're just awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I tell them, look, let the dog. The dog seems happy. The dog is fulfilled, and I can get my dogs crazy in about 1 second. If you want to see it, then we can show them. But I also tell them that we need to be able to shut it off too.
Well, I think
And
there's sort of like, I mean, I can go on a tangent about this. I don't know if there's other questions you want to bring up, but there's sort of like a tangential conversation to this, um, which is like to a certain extent I get it, right? Like I get, I think one of the biggest, hands down, biggest problems in the animal training industry today is people not getting the right dog, right? And
yeah,
so what happens is, our society, like, even if you look back 50 years ago, like when my parents were growing up with their dogs, the dogs like ran around the neighborhoods. Now, of course, there's downsides to that. They were getting hit by cars all the time, and there's
right.
all kinds of stuff happening. But they were getting a lot of exercise and socialization and mental enrichment. They were foraging, they're scavenging, they're doing all these very natural behaviors. And as our society has developed with dogs, we've brought dogs more into our worlds, which has a lot of benefits to them where we protect them, we keep them safe, but they also don't get to behave naturally. You know, they're behind four walls, they're on leashes, they're behind fences. That's very unnatural for an animal. And then even more so when people get the wrong dog. You know, people get a German Shepherd and then stick it in a one-bedroom apartment, you know, or they get a Husky and stick it in the city. Or like me growing up, we had a Beagle. We lived in the city, and the only reason we had the dog is because my father's cousin bred Beagles and gave us one. But we really shouldn't have had a Beagle. Like the dog ran away constantly because Beagles aren't like Beagles want to run. Like they want to run. Like you need to have some acreage and let them do their thing, right? And so, to a certain extent, I get it. Like the more that we bring dogs, I'll put it this way: the more you ask a dog to live in a way that's not true to their nature, the more training becomes required. Like now more than ever, training is like a necessity if you own a dog. And it's largely because we are asking dogs to live in a really, really unnatural way. And that's a weird thing to say, right? Because it's not like I don't want to sound like PETA, right? Where it's like nobody should own dogs; they're better off dead. Like I'm not going that far. But what I'm saying is, like, you know, so for instance, I have a Malinois, right? And he's 8 years
Right.
old, so he's slowing down, but he's an intense guy. And if I don't work him enough, now he comes to work with me every day. Otherwise, I wouldn't own a dog like that. If he doesn't get enough activity throughout the day, I have to use a lot of dog training, right? Like I have to tell him do this, do that, heel.
Focus, duration work. Right. Exactly.
Um, when he gets enough work, when he lives through the day in a way that's more true to his nature, I barely have to tell him anything. Like he's chill. Like he's fine. You know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
I do think to a certain extent like that's the flip side of that discussion of like is training punishment. Like no, absolutely not. Like training benefits dogs regardless, even if they are truly fulfilled. Dogs love being trained, but what I do want to make sure is very clear is like I think there's an over reliance on training is like instead of like enrichment. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Enriching dogs' lives and making sure we're getting the right dog for ourselves. Like I have two kids now, and they're young, and so Lobo, you know, he's 8 going on 9. He will be my last Malinois for a while. I love.
Right.
They're so much fun to train, but now having two small children, I have no business bringing a young Malinois into my life. I have no like it wouldn't be fair to the dog. I can't devote the time that a young Malinois needs and it would end up being disastrous. And I would have to provide a lot of training to manage the behavior. And I'm training in quotes because that's different from like if you do like agility or something like that. Like that's still dog training, but it's not like I'm talking about like the training that's required to live peacefully with the dog, right? So much of that, so much of the strong necessity for that in our current day and age has to do with the fact that dogs are living in such confinement, right? They're on leashes, they're behind walls, and they're not getting the exercise and mental enrichment that nature really designed them for. And people are getting breeds because they like the way the breed looks or whatever, or their friend had one, but they're not considering what that dog was designed for genetically.
Exactly. Yep. They're not taking into consideration what this dog was originally bred for.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I tell people buying a dog without taking that into consideration is like buying a house without an inspection. Something's going to pop up. A gremlin's going to pop up in the future here, you know, gives us job security. But man, it's not, it's like you said, it's the wrong dog for this situation. And it's a lifelong management issue.
And
Instead,
like I love training, and so I like really highly motivated and energetic dogs. And the reason that I've had Malinois in the past is because, especially when I was starting my business, like I was training my dog all day, and I needed a dog that wouldn't burn out. You know, that they would just be like ready to go all day long. And so
right.
great. But my lifestyle is different, and like Lobo's super chill now. He's 9 years old, and he knows the routines, and he comes everywhere with me, and he's fine. But next dog I get, honestly, like as much as I love energetic, high drive dogs, most likely next dog I get when it's gonna be years down the line, but I'll probably be looking for like a relatively chill, like mellow, like not intense, you know,
Basset hound.
chill out dog that like just likes hanging out with the family because that's
English lab.
a dog for me that I know I have the time and the energy to keep them fulfilled. It would be unfair for me to get another Malinois because I think Malinois are cool and because I have 15 minutes a day that within that 15 minutes I want a dog who's super drivey, but the other, 23 and a half hours of the day are not conducive to a Malinois at all. Like that's super fair to that dog. You know what I mean? And so I
Absolutely.
in that regard, I guess that's my tangential topic to Doug's question is just not that training's punishment, but like let's not put training the dog ahead of enriching their lives and making sure that we're doing right by them, and that we're getting the right dogs. I feel like you should, like there should be people out there who are professional dog picker outers, like
Matchmakers. That's my favorite thing to do, dude. I love matchmaking.
yeah,
Do you
like
ever
it's
do that?
a valuable thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I think that's very well put, man. And it's so important, to take a dog's nature into consideration, what they were bred for, and then your lifestyle as a family unit. And not only that, but remember that this is a decade decision. And so if you have a high maintenance dog, I mean, even when they're older, they're still that drive is still in there. And we owe it to that animal to make sure that they're fulfilled as well. And that's what we were just chatting about. And in fact, dude, I got so many comments here. So let me run down. And so we got awesome topic. Philadelphia's in the house. Claremont, Georgia.
Congratulations, Philadelphia. You guys.
Yeah, what a game, huh? And then I saw my buddies were on Instagram in Philadelphia showing me all the craziness. So just jumped on and heard. Let me put this up on the screen here. Just jumped in and heard. They get the dog gets fulfillment out of the relationship too. I have a great dog, and we are a great team. He is always ready to go train and play. It's both of us. I can't put into words the relationship we have. We're not traded for all the tea in China.
Yeah.
That's from Barb Stevens. Yeah, I agree 100% with you, man. I mean, these dogs, it's been argued that we wouldn't be where we are as a civilization without the help of our four-legged friends, and we owe a lot to them, including, like Tyler was saying, enrichment and training that not only is overlaid with our lifestyle, but speaks to the motivations that they have, and makes them happy as well.
Now here's a thing, Bill, and this might like light the live feed on fire. So I apologize. And this is just again, I'm a philosophy person, so what we're trained to do as a philosophy student is to understand all sides of a perspective, right?
Right.
You always bring an argument on the other side also to its logical conclusion. So, you know, on that same topic, I think not only like the more we ask dogs to live against their nature, the more that training is required. But I also think the more that we do that, the more you find that you need to implement some form of aversive control into your training as well. Okay. No, I'm not. I think no matter what, I think some, here and there, some aversive control is just part of life, right? Like for all of us. But when we talk about the whole like, should training be all reward based or should we ban tools, whatever? I think a big part of that picture is if the world goes down that road. Like just last week, Scotland announced that they're gonna ban e-collars, and I'm dealing with that right now with the ICP. But I think one sort of outcome of that is if we're gonna make it outlawed for people to use aversives in training, e-collars, prong collars, or to use balance training, whatever. I think we're going to have to start breeding dogs differently, right? I think that's going to have to come into consideration. Like you're not going to be able to have families owning like really dominant end of the spectrum Rottweilers anymore.
Right.
And we have to stop breeding those dogs because it's going to be dangerous if we can't have aversive control on them. And now the flip side of that, and this is where, like, I don't know, I might piss some people off here. I'm just playing devil's advocate, but is that necessarily a bad thing, right? If we look at it again, like our society is asking dogs to live so against their nature. People are getting German Shepherds because they think it makes them look tough, but that dog is not being able to really be a German Shepherd, right?
Right.
If training tools get outlawed, and then because of that, there's a selective pressure on breeding, right? Because people are gonna have to surrender. I mean, trust me, like it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be really freaking ugly. Like people are gonna have to surrender all kinds of dogs to shelters if this happens, because there's just gonna be dogs you can't live with anymore. But that'll put a selective pressure on breeding, where we're gonna have to start breeding dogs differently. And now we're talking. This would take who knows how long, 50 years, 100 years down the line, where now we're only breeding dogs that are more docile, more laid back, more chill, easier to manage, more responsive to human command, and more more easy to fulfill with the average person's lifestyle, so that they don't need that kind of aversive control. If we look at the long game, right? If we look at the 100-year, 200-year game of dogs in our human society, is that a bad thing?
Hugs for everyone. That's what Justin says. Justin Crawford.
It's true, and I mean, I don't think. I mean, hopefully, like personally, I think people should be conscious of that, regardless of whether tools get banned or not. I think people should have access to proper training tools. Period.
I think. I mean, it's impossible to breed it out. I think, man. I mean, just like we have.
I don't know. I'm not a geneticist, you know.
Right. I mean, it's kind of what is in the nature of this dog as a predatory animal. I mean, there's going to be individuals that carry these characteristics, and then what? You know, there are consequences in nature, and you know that's basically what these aversives teach the dog is consequences behind their choices, or you know, I mean, it's a long line, and also or a long conversation. But you know, the biggest thing that I see when people don't use aversives is they adhere to, you know, Skinner and Pavlov, and they don't take into consideration that this was done in an acoustic chamber called a science lab, and that these dogs are not pigeons or rats. They come out into the world with us, and the world is rich with external stimuli, an infinite amount, where chaos is inevitable at any minute. And as stewards of these animals, it's our obligation, our moral obligation, to show them this world that we take them into and bring them into.
Well,
And
absolutely, and I think, you know, right. So I mean, that's exactly why I say, like, I personally think no matter what kind of dogs we're breeding, I think some amount of aversive control is healthy, because if you look. So here's something that happened the other day. I was driving to work, and I was at a stoplight, and in front of me there's a guy pushing a stroller, and in front of the stroller is like his toddler on like a little big, you know, big wheels, you know, it's like plastic tricycle kind of things, right? And they go across the crosswalk, and you know, next to them, parallel to them, there's traffic just whizzing by. It's a main road, and I'm thinking to myself, because I have a toddler, he's not quite that age yet, and I was like, man, like the kind of trust as a parent you have that that kid's not just going to take a swerve right into the traffic, and how do we know the kid's not going to do that? And the reason that we know that is because we've instilled in that child a sense of danger about what cars represent, right? When I walk my son through a parking lot, we actually talk about the fact that he has to hold my hand in the parking lot because there's cars, and cars are dangerous and they can hurt him. And so I instill this sense of that he has to stay close to me to be safe. And because we can use language, he's legitimately afraid to wander out into a parking lot. He actually says, you know, he's 2.5, so he's talking now. He says, I'm going to hold your hand so the cars don't get me, right? He has a sense of fear and danger about that. If, you know, so he knows what it means to be safe. If he's standing up on his chair, I say, Max, you got to sit down. It's not safe. You could fall and get an owie. He knows what that means. He knows that he could be hurt. And so because we can use language, we as humans can instill that sense of danger in our children without having to have them actually experience the danger.
yeah,
Dog, we don't have that ability necessarily, right? So
right.
we have, if you're not careful, you know, we have dogs in our society that are out in the world with like reckless abandon, you know, like just running wild. They have no sense of danger in the world. And to me, that's one of the most valuable things that, for instance, an electronic collar can do when it's used appropriately, is you can provide danger to a context where that's appropriate, right? Like fear is adaptive. We've evolved to have the emotion of fear for a very important reason. There are things that you're supposed to be afraid of. But when we raise an animal in a bubble and they don't experience the world in a natural way, and there's things in that environment that they don't understand naturally, like cars or antifreeze, right?
Mhm.
And the only way they would understand the danger of it would be deadly, would just be deadly. Then there's value in having the ability to have them experience a sense of danger in a more controlled and less risky way, which is what an electronic collar can do. If the dog goes near the road and they get a little bit of a zap and it stings a little bit, but I'd much rather them feel that than feel the bumper of a car on the side of their head.
Absolutely.
And so now the dog understands going near roads has a certain danger that goes along with it. There's an adaptive need for that for survival if we want dogs to fit into our society. Otherwise, what's the alternative? The alternative is management, where we keep them on leashes, and if you don't have access to huge, vast open spaces, they're never allowed to run off leash, and they're behind four walls. And if we think about, like a lot of people go by the policy of least aversive, or least invasive, minimally aversive, right?
Neymar?
What's invasive in a dog's life, I think, is debatable, and people think that an e-collar is very invasive. I think keeping a dog on a leash its whole life is far more invasive.
Absolutely. With that tension, just like what you were talking about with your
Oh,
beagle collapsing his trachea. I mean, you've experienced it firsthand, that this is not a good thing. I mean, I mean, but it's also, um, it's also a tool. Just like anything, any leash, or we need to have incremental steps that we introduce the dog to the tool, and then we show them the abstract ideas that we want, and then we have it for. I mean, I leave my e-collars on my dogs whenever we're out hiking or whatever, just so I have like a cell phone,
yeah,
and I can have a flip phone or I can have the iPhone. Who said that? Somebody said that at an IACP conference, and I was like, oh, was that you?
not me. No,
Okay. But yeah, and IACP, dude. We got so many questions here, so I'm gonna get in here. But IACP is the International Association of Canine Professionals, and Tyler is a big part of that. Um, and we're having another conference, and if anybody here who's watching, listening, I definitely recommend you attending these conferences. It's wonderful to get in front of other professionals who deal with problems that you deal with, and also discuss options for new solutions, and just get in front of each other to reach out, shake each other's hands, look each other in the eye, and form some camaraderie with people that have the same motives and desires that you do. And yeah, so, and you know what, as you talk about this, I wanted to touch on this because I wrote it down. The craziest dog that I mean, as people try to switch these dogs to a better looking dog, I had a dog that was supposed to be a show dog for a German Shepherd, and they didn't take any consideration into temperament when they were breeding these dogs. And this dog was the craziest dog I've ever had. I mean, it was the most unpredictable, crazy dog. So I think that it might even get worse as people try to, just to take the looks of the animal and not what's on the inside, what they're bred for. We have a good question here. Can you speak on how to help people that don't have oodles of money? I don't know what an oodle of money would qualify for, but oodles of money for board and train or one-on-one. I worked at a kennel and had many people ask for recommendations, and people would see the higher prices for qualified balance places and look for cheaper options like Petco.
So the question is like what are the good options for those people?
Yeah, if you're on a budget.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a couple things, and I'll probably, Bill, if you don't mind, I'll just plug. I'll kind of talk about my new project
Of
here
course.
for it. But
Wait, hold on. Exclusive. Here, let me type this in. Hold
yeah,
on.
I've been teasing about this new project I have, and I told Bill I would finally talk about it. I've been teasing about it for weeks um, on my newsletter and on my Facebook page. So first and foremost, like take advantage of YouTube. Like there's insane amounts of information available for free on YouTube. Um, but Yeah, I'm just going to take advantage of this opportunity. So I have a new project, a new site I'm launching. It's called Consider the Dog, and it's basically a streaming video site that's really just 100% focused on um, pet dogs and pet dog owners, and behavioral education. And it's going to be, it's a paid thing. It's a paid service, but it's relatively inexpensive compared to like attending dog training. And there's some free content going on there as well. We're getting ready to do like a soft launch. Just be a few videos going up initially. But the cool thing about this site is it's not just me. Um, so I'm gonna leave a little bit of mystery, but I do have um, a handful of people contributing content. Um, I think about 8 at this point that are like really well respected professionals in the field, and specifically people that work with families with behavior problems. Because there's a lot of streaming services, there's a lot of sites to get streaming videos now, but most of them are mostly focused on professional trainers or like
Right.
training. Um, and they might have some stuff that's like pet dog oriented, but this is really like 100% pet dog oriented. And there's gonna be like really short, quick stuff on there, but also longer, full length, like DVD length materials on there as well. So it's brand new. Like I said, we're doing a soft launch. There's just gonna be a couple of videos up initially, and then eventually, once we have enough content on there, which won't take long at all, with the people I have contributing, we'll be able to have subscriptions available. So you just pay a monthly fee. It's gonna be a very inexpensive monthly fee to have access to some of the top trainers in the industry. Consider the Dog. It's gonna be amazing.
ConsiderTheDog.com, is that where it's going to be at?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, the site is live right now. There's like one free video up there right now that it's basically I just put up there to test. I just kind of getting things ready to go totally live. Sorry, my phone went into low battery mode. So yeah, there's one free video up there right now. We're gonna be adding more in the coming weeks, and probably within a couple months, there'll be a pretty robust amount of video on there, and then we'll do a more full announcement and grand scale launch of the whole thing. But sort of a sneak peek. It's going to be a really cool thing. It's something I've been planning for a long time, and it's just sort of coming to fruition now. So yeah, consider the dog, and the name is all about basically what it is. It's consider is like to think about. Like if I say, hey, consider this thing, right? Like it's to think about it, right? To be thoughtful about something, but it's also to be considerate of, right? To care for, put yourself in their shoes, to see the world through their eyes, and that's sort of the values that everybody who's contributing content sort of stands behind, is just trying to help people see the world through the eyes of their dog. Because I think in my experience, and maybe this is probably true for you too, Bill, I think the singular most important thing that we as professionals can help people do is not teaching their dog how to sit or stay. It's not about teaching them how to lure a dog or handle a leash. It's
Right.
teach people how to understand the world from the dog's point of view. When you
Becoming the dog. I tell people that all the time.
Yeah, man, when you learn how to do that, things start to become a lot more clear, and the leash becomes a lot less relevant. The treats become a lot less relevant because you start to understand why the dog is behaving the way it's behaving based on the way it perceives the world, or it perceives its role in it, or your role in it, or whatever.
Yep.
What we want to be helping people do is to understand their dogs on a deeper level.
You know what's cool about the word consider? Uh, like coming together, like congregate, congress, right? And then situs or cider is star. And so it's and then to consider is to examine for Latin, and then it went to Old French, and then now we use it as consider in Middle English. I'm a huge Latin and Greek fan, dude. So
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's it, man. Is becoming the dog, and the biggest thing that people do when they work with their animal is they put human characteristics on this animal. And I have to tell people, look, we as human beings, we have parts of our brain that this animal does not have, and we have capabilities with our thought processes that this animal is not capable of, and we need to get to their level of thinking and see the world through their eyes, and become the dog by proxy. And that's how we get a full understanding of this relationship. And that's that path of opening the lines of communication and that path of fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got a few more here. Hello from Medina, my New York. My sweet dog Lucy was trained at Canine Connection. Thank you, Tyler, for your help and guidance. People need to stop buying dogs they see on movies. Kimberly says, hit the nail on the head. Love this topic. I'm just wondering, do you guys feel that people portray their own needs onto their dog and thus pick a dog that doesn't match their lifestyle as well?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And people get dogs to fill a void in their life, without thinking about the dog.
Or they get a dog that a family member had that they were fond of, or they get a dog that they remember growing up, or they get a dog that, like we heard earlier, that they saw in a movie that they were connected to. It's interesting. Or they go and they're having a bad day and they go to a pound and they see a dog that just calls to their heart, and they make an emotional decision with the void of logic, not taking into consideration this dog's temperament, not doing the proper temperament tests, and then taking the consideration of their lifestyle as well.
You're going to adopt a dog, and I'm a huge proponent of adopting dogs, but I think all rescues and shelters should be doing trial periods. Like, take the dog for a weekend or for a week and see how it fits into your lifestyle, because a dog can behave very differently in a shelter or even with a foster. People, here's the thing about also dog training and behavior is people don't realize how much of a role the environment plays on a dog. Like, it's not all reward and punishment. A dog's behavior can change dramatically just based on the environment it's placed into. What are the stressors in the environment? What is the temperaments of the other animals, including humans, in the environment, can all affect how it behaves. And so I've seen dogs that, with their foster owner, the dog is beautiful, no problems at all, and then it goes with somebody with a different personality, and the dog becomes totally different. The dog all of a sudden is reactive or nervous or whatever, but it displayed none of that with the foster, and vice versa. I've had dogs with foster owners that the foster was really struggling, and they find the right adoptive home, and the dog goes into a new home, and all the problems the foster was having go away without any training whatsoever. And that's what I think when we talk about the difference between like traditional dog training and behavior, and when I say I wasn't really satisfied with what I saw in Buffalo when I first moved here, it's kind of just that, right? Like, I'm fascinated by behavior analysis from the standpoint of Skinner and Pavlov. I love manipulating a dog's behavior through operant conditioning. I think it's such a cool process. And it's just one piece of the puzzle. And I think so often people don't look at all the other environmental factors that you change the environment and the behavior changes. And I think that's the difference between a good behaviorist, for lack of a better term, or animal behavior expert, is they look at that environment and they're not just interested in how do I modify this behavior through reward and punishment, but they say, what might I be able to alter environmentally that might completely change the way this dog behaves.
Yep. Looking at thresholds and when that dog gets into overwhelm and looking at it as a feedback mechanism, instead of just cut and dry.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of times people don't look at their own behavior.
Right.
They're walking around all day. Maybe they've got an ex-spouse that they're on the phone with all day, screaming and shouting.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why their dog's barking every time it sees a new person and losing its mind. It's well, you're that's what you're doing all day long. This is your dog. It's don't worry about punishing the barking. Just why don't you meditate for a minute and drink a cup of tea? It might have an impact. So.
Yeah, I mean that's it. And these dogs teach us way more about us and our lifestyle than we can. And these dogs are reacting to their environment, and that's it. It's and when we have a safe environment and when the dog knows, then we're ready to take this. We have what's called a foundation, and so now we can take this relationship to wherever we want to go, and that's where that the clicker stuff or the shaping, and that's where it comes in. Is like once we've developed that proper understanding, that foundation that we can always fall back to, then we can really start shaping and seeing what our dog wants to do with us as well. So hey, me and my adolescent German Shepherd here listening to you. This is from Sandra. Tyler, I follow your training videos and they have helped me so much. She wishes you were closer. Dylan wants to do an interview. I'll reach out to you, Dylan. Maybe we can set something up. Here, there has to be consequences for dogs in order for them to make better, good choices. I think that was when the adversives, we were chatting about those. And that's it, is consequences, right? Coming together, sequences coming together, right? And so
like consequence, like in the dog training world, consequence has it's like a bad word, but like consequences can be good too. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
Dogs just have to learn their behavior has consequences, good and bad. Period. I see so many dogs that like treats and affection is just thrown at them so randomly that when you want to reward good behavior, the dog has no way of knowing that reward is for a specific behavior because all day long they're getting that same thing.
It doesn't have any value.
It's for nothing. Like they're just being fed, right? So you've got to be careful about that stuff. Anyhow,
I call dog treats dog money, and it's just like a rich dog. If you know any rich people that have never ever had any struggle or anything, and they really don't have a clue about life. Sometimes that happens when we overtreat these animals, and it'd be just like if from the time that a kid was 2 years old until they're our age, I was giving them, or until they're out of adolescence, not at our age. If I was to give them $20 every time they said please, after a couple of years of that, you would think that this kid was developmentally delayed, because if you didn't know him and you come walking in on this conversation, you would see a kid being like, "Hey, Dad, thank you. I'm going to be. Thank you to the store. And it would just alter their behavior in a way that isn't constructive or conducive to that life. And that's it. Is making sure that these moments hold value. And when we over treat the dog, then the dog kind of gets desensitized to that in a way, right?
Yep.
Okay. We have already done in the gun dog world, dogs are becoming softer and less driven, and it does not make them easier to train for the novice handler. They are less forgiving. Yeah, they're soft dogs. They won't forget. That will lead to apprehension towards handlers if you overcorrect a soft dog there. It would take several generations of breeding, teaching consequences. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up here. Australian will come to the next IACP. Birdie, you better come.
Love Birdie. Birdie's a friend of mine.
Birdie is, yeah. I think she asked a question earlier. I can't find it here. We got so many comments, and so let's. Any thoughts on tail chasing with the dog that lives in a pack and has lots of exercise? Let's see that. I mean, it's focused behavior. We need to. I mean, it depends on that particular animal. I mean, interrupting the behavior.
The first thing I go to with OCD dogs is always, what's that dog designed to do, and how can we give them an outlet to do it? Like that's always, almost always my first go to, and 9 times out of 10 is the solution. Sometimes you still have to, like, once you give them all that, then you have to go like, okay, now knock it off, and then they go, oh, okay, I'll stop this now because you've given me all this other. But usually it's like, like what's the dog designed to do? And because just running around with other dogs isn't necessarily like fulfilling that need. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. And hey, look, we got Gene. I just signed up to consider the dog.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So like you put your name and email in, and then you'll get notified anytime we upload new content. And like I said, we're going to be doing a soft launch, but I think we have 8 contributors, so there'll be pretty regular content coming on the site. It's going to be really kick ass. I'm super excited about it. Super duper.
Considerthedog.com. I put it back on the screen there. People visit and become a member. And as a dog trainer, would you consider that you train more the dog or the owner? And is there differences in certain situations?
Oh yeah, of course. I think it's both. I mean, I think as a dog is getting trained in any scenario, it's a 2-way road, right? Like we like the dog, like, okay, we have something the dog wants, right? Whether it's a treat or just for us to stop pulling on a leash, whatever it is, right? Whatever, there's some underlying motivation if we're training a dog. So we have something the dog wants. The dog has to say, what do I need to do to get the human to do X, right?
Right.
Also, the other way around, that we want something from the dog. We want the dog to sit. And so training is a process of saying, well, what do I as a human need to do that will make my dog sit? So as the dog is being trained, we are simultaneously being trained on how to behave with that particular dog, because every dog's a little bit different.
Right.
So it's a mutual process, right? And so that's what we're doing as dog trainers, is we're saying to the humans, hey, these are the things that usually work with dogs. So let's try the things that are most successful and figure out what's going to make this dog tick. And so the humans learning how they need to alter their behavior, and the dogs learning how they need to alter their behavior, and everybody's behavior is changing, no matter what. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. So yeah, for sure, it's both, and how much of each totally depends on the situation.
Well, and Claire brings up an excellent point here too. She says that that it is, in her humble opinion, also the way that many breeders raise puppies, more socializing, elaborate playpens, wobble boards, noise conditioning. More and more puppies are leaving breeders totally confident that nothing can hurt them. Great from a social aspect, but less positive in the sense there being very few natural fears or respects for their surroundings.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, breeders need to take into consideration the whole life of this animal. And I've, who's the gal that did the containment seminar? Claire. You know who I'm talking about on the IACP? If anybody knows who I'm talking about, type it in the comments. But phobia, containment phobia versus
Karen.
Separation. Karen, what's Karen's last name?
I have the book here somewhere.
I do too, but
I know it's like one of those things. Like normally I know her name, no problem. And Garvin.
There we go. Look at here we go.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, Karen Garvin.
Here's
the book right here, Karen Garvin.
Yeah.
And I was chatting with her. I'm going to have her on, man. She's one of my favorite people ever. And she brought up a point with the breeders that the first time that some of these puppies experience a car ride is going away. And so she even recommends breeders just taking the puppies out on a car ride, bringing them back, letting them have experience with that car. I mean, it's very interesting when you start to take into consideration the life of the animal and then overlaying it with the people or the human life, and start making introductions at the formative or formative years, right? And so this is format that we are giving this dog, and so if we give a dog the format of a Commodore 64, people remember that one, and then try to run a Windows on it, right? It's not going to work. The dog needs to have experiences in human life with the many different stimulus that's around us. That Karen Garvin. Thank you, Jason.
Bill, really quick, just heads up. My phone keeps telling me I have like 10% battery life. I'm running this off my phone right now.
Okay.
But if I cut out, I'm just going to quickly log back in from my computer. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Okay, cool.
Disappear, I will reappear sitting slightly more over there. I think 10% will get me pretty far, but I just wanted to give you a heads up because I have no idea.
We'll find out.
Okay. Anyhow, proceed.
Okay, how can I see? I don't even know this word. Satiate? What is it? Say it again.
Satiate.
Satiate. Thank you, Tyler. My wife's not here. Satiate an incessant fetcher. My little 4-pound Yorkie mix will go all day, but it's a small space and not very challenging. Is there more that I can do?
Well, I think there's a healthy balance, right? Like my Malinois will fetch all day too, but the thing is, at a certain point, what you're doing is you're creating a stronger athlete, right? So there's definitely a tipping point with exercise where it's like we want to do enough to sort of take the edge off, but the dog also needs to just learn how to be calm, especially around things that stimulate it, right? And so I think exercise is extremely important, but we want to be careful about if we rely solely on exercise, um, then today it took an hour to satisfy the dog. Tomorrow it takes an hour and 5 minutes. Next week it's an hour and 15 minutes. And before you know it, what you're doing is you're creating like a triathlete, right? You're creating an animal that has a capacity for more and more and more because you're literally training it like an athlete. You're pushing it to its limit every day. And so that limit's going to get greater and greater. So I think, I don't necessarily, with my dog, I don't look to throw the ball for him until like he's ready to drop. Like usually when I stop throwing the ball, like he would still prefer to keep going. But it's been enough that then when we go and he sees that me as a human, like I'm settling down, he knows it's time for him to settle down too. And I've sort of met his needs, so he's capable of doing that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And for a lot of high drive dogs, their drive and their energy level, like if you have a really high drive dog, that dog could be exhausted, but if it sees a tennis ball, it's like energy just comes out of outer space. Like I don't know where it comes from at that point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? Like how tired they get. If a squirrel pops out of a tree, they're going to get excited if you don't teach them how to be calm around those things. And so, just because the dog wants to keep chasing a ball, it doesn't necessarily mean that the dog is not physically tired. It just means that the dog's internal motivation, like like it's mind over matter, right? Like just like human, right? Like their internal mental motivation can override how they're feeling physically, and we can do that as humans too. Like talk to any like really high achieving athlete or like a power lifter, they will tell you, man, like mind over matter. Like you've got to be in it to win it, and your legs could be ready to give out, but you'll still get that one last squat in.
Absolutely.
Or like a really good martial artist, like absolutely, they'll tell you it's all about the mental game, 100%.
Or anybody who competes at that high level know that it's not. And one of my mentors, a gentleman by the name of John Assaraf, he taught me that it's exercise is the outer, but then we also have inner size, which is the inner, where we're taking and working on ourselves. And there's a great book out there for people called Deep Work: How to Focus in a Distracted World. And I definitely recommend people doing that for yourself. But it also shows that this is beneficial to our dog as well. We also have to remember that the brain uses up a third of our resources, our water, everything goes to our brain. And when we're really using this brain, I mean, it's going to cause some dog to be tired. I mean, and
like you might take that little dog that's gonna fetch till its legs drop off, and now say, okay, instead of just playing fetch, let's teach you some scent work. Let's teach you how to use your nose to locate specific scents, and you get the ball as a reward for doing that.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And how you're draining mental energy at a high rate through that scent work, and the dog's still getting the ball, but it's not just about the physical activity of the ball, right? And so that's one way that you might, again, work on that, but still the dog has to just learn how to be calm. Like the dog sometimes just like, it's time to be calm, right? Like and it could be as simple as just like step on the leash and just,
sit on the dog, what we call sit on the dog.
dog, like not like, don't step on the leash like slamming the dog to the ground. Just they only have a few feet to move around. They'll eventually settle down because there's nothing else to do, and then they just learn. Speaking of Bill, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna reverse interview you. What is what's the non-dog training, non-dog related book that you either give to people or recommend the most?
Oh, there's so many, dude. It just depends. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about. Geez, let me look around at all my books here. I don't know. That's a hard one.
That's a Tim Ferriss question. Tim Ferriss always asks that question.
Yeah, I like Tim Ferriss, man. I have Tim Ferriss books right here. I have the 4-Hour Body, 4-Hour Work Week, and I try to read 100 books a year at least.
It's a good goal.
And so, and I use an app called the Voice Stream app that's on the iPhone, and I get a lot of books on audiobook as well.
Yep.
I mean, I'm kind of drawing a blank. You know what? I'm a big fan of a guy named Stephen Jenkinson. And this is kind of a curveball, dude, but my intuition says to say it, but so I'm saying Die Wise. It's a book on this guy. He is the head of palliative care for Cedar Sinai, and he has a documentary a movie called The Grief Walker,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
and he counsels people on how to die. I mean, he counsels people that have been given a terminal diagnosis
Did,
and their family. What's that?
did Tim Ferriss interview him once?
I don't know.
I think he might have on his podcast.
Well, there we go. I mean, there's the full circle. But Die Wise, Stephen Jenkinson. I mean, it's kind of more macabre, and morbid. But I mean, I think that death is a big factor that people, we belong to a death phobic culture in the West here, and he says that the only commonality that he sees through these people that have been given this diagnosis is that this wretched anxiety, this fear, this debilitating fear, and we need to address that, because what the number one cause of death is, right, Tyler?
Stress.
What's that?
Stress.
Well, being born
Ah, eh.
is the number one, and so it's something that all of us are going to experience, and it's something that, as professionals that work with a living creature that doesn't live as long as us, that we take an opportunity here to practice and to see this how to practice grief and becoming grief literate, right? And so that's kind of a curveball, dude, but that's what I would recommend.
Cool,
Die Wise, Stephen Jenkinson.
Yeah.
So it's a great book. I mean, it's not like a how-to book or solutions or anything. It just talks about it, man. And I think that's it. It's just talking about this stuff. And we, just like the role of the dog has changed dramatically in the past 100 years. There's been a lot of things that have changed the way that we structure our lives that kind of keeps certain aspects in the dark that might benefit us, even though they might not feel good, or they might be a little bit more on the darker side, I guess. It's kind of like that Carl Jung, becoming enlightened is not about fairy tales and imagining, lightness. It's about facing your shadow, and that's it. Is we need to look at the other side of this. So I hope that's. Do you have any more questions, Tyler?
What's your favorite dog related book that you would like not to dog trainers, but like if you had a family member that was like, hey man, I'm getting a dog. Do you recommend any dog books?
Oh, brothers.
But just like dog, just whatever.
The New Skeet, man. I love the monks of New Skeet, and I'm all about them. I recommend them. I mean, the Art of Raising a Puppy. I send that out to everybody, and I'll even gift that to veterinarians, and just like this, the content in that and those books are gold, and so I definitely recommend. What about you, man? I'm switching it back on you real quick. What's your non-dog related?
Non-dog related, I surround myself with a lot of like really intense people and like high achievers and such. So I give out a lot. Ryan Holiday's two books, "Ego is the Enemy" and "The Obstacle is the Way." Um, they're phenomenal books. They're really easy to read, and they're sort of like Ryan Holiday's really big into Stoic philosophy and just sort of like real life applications of Stoic philosophy, which Stoic philosophy is all about, like living, which is why I like it. It's not esoteric in any way. It's just like how to live well. So I give those two books out a ton as far as non-dog related. Those are probably the top ones I give out. And then dog related would be "If Bones Would Rain from the Sky," or if a dog's dreams were answered, bones would rain from the sky. By I'm just drawing a blank right now. It's on my shelf. Susan Clothier. I think that's a book that every dog owner and every dog.
I don't have it. I'm ordering it right now. What is it called? If
a dog's prayers were answered, bones would rain from the sky. If you just type in "bones would rain from the sky," it'll pop up. Susan Clothier. It's just a phenomenal book. It's written so well, and it just covers like living with dogs, and it covers everything so gracefully. She covers the concept of punishment really gracefully, and even like having a dog dying. she covers it all, man, and it's a beautifully written book. She has a wonderful writing style, so it's very pleasant to read. It's not a how to, but it's not, but it is. It's about living with dogs and what that really means and what it entails. And I think everybody should read it. It's a great book.
Bones would rain from the sky, deepening our relationship with dogs. Suzanne Clothier. Isn't she part of IACP?
She might be. She has a cool blog. She's a pretty avid writer.
Okay.
And this is my tip to all you up and coming dog trainers out there. This is my tip to you about how to get like a mentor, or if there's a dog trainer that you really admire and you want to like get close to them. My secret, what I've always done, and it works every time, because I've got my mentors too. Don't talk to them about dogs. Ask them about stuff they're interested in that have nothing to do with dogs. That's why I asked Bill first, what's the because that tells you about something. It tells you something about what people are into. Don't talk to them about dogs, and then they'll want to hang out with you more because they're sick of talking about dogs to all the people that want dog questions. Right?
Well, in the work mode,
You're like, hey man, what do you do when you're not training dogs? And then be really interested in whatever they tell you, and that person will want to spend more time with you. It telling you it works like magic.
Well, did you see how it took me a second to get out of this work mode? Oh, there he goes. So Tyler is gone, but it took me a second when he asked me that question to get out of this work mode and to like look around and like kind of check in with what books that have really made a profound impact on my life in the last few years and to make suggestions. And there's been a bunch of them. But that book, Die Wise, is definitely great. So let me read some of your comments here while we wait for Tyler to make an appearance back. We discussed Susan Clothier's book in the book club. We loved it. I'm definitely going to be reading it. It was my first dog book. Love it. Hi, guys. A great way to work a dog is not only through exercise, but also training your dog to do other things, which can exhaust the dog. Hey, let me see. That's probably from Tyler here. Oh, he's back. So let me put him back on. I don't see him yet. Uh-oh. Let me find out. I'm coming back, he says. So, he's not back yet. He's coming back. So let me get back to this here. So a great way to work your dog is not only through training or exercise, but also training your dog to do other things, which can exhaust the dog in different ways to create good teamwork with each other. I have an Australian Shepherd. Her name is Lacey. Tyler, have you met her a few times? It's important to do several different things with your dogs. Yes, we do exercise her. I'll put her on the treadmill, play in the backyard, go to a park, but also different things such as nose work, agility, learning to stay calm when there are lots of stimuli going on. Working dog's mind is more important sometimes than the physical, I believe. Absolutely. And yes, so many people purchase a dog for emotional reasons and not thinking about it. It's a lifelong commitment, just like a child. Great job, you guys. Love listening. Very informative. Thank you so much. Glad that you're here. And as I'm sitting here talking, I have two of my dogs laying down here in a downstay. I have another one back here in a kennel, and they're all just sacked out. And because they have experience with being calm and what is expected of them. And it looks like Tyler is back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring him back on board. Here he comes. There he is.
I'm here. Sorry, guys, my phone died. I moved from over there.
Yep, and then I'm just reading down some of these comments. I mean, it's basically they're all saying about how mental exercise is key. Mental exercise is also important, such as searching for a toy in your home or the sport of nose work could help. A great idea for that hyper dog.
But that's what we mean by enrichment. That's so much of what we're talking about when we say like dogs are lacking enrichment these days. And I think, honestly, this just goes full circle back to like the whole discussion about like, using aversives or whatnot. Like, to me, there's nothing more enriching for a dog than taking them to the woods off leash or like somewhere in nature. If you don't have like a forest near you, if you're in the desert, it doesn't matter, but taking them to a natural environment and letting them just be a dog off leash. And again, if an e-collar facilitates that, like, that's one of the greatest gifts you can give a dog. And I know my dogs, they're more settled and satisfied after an off-leash romp in the woods than they are after almost any other activity out there. Because again, it's not just running around. They're sniffing, they're foraging. It's those, like if you look at like wildlife enrichment, right? Like almost always what they're trying to do is mimic foraging behaviors, right? How would the animal search for food, right? And that's what so much of mental enrichment is all about.
Well, and it's also, be silly, be out there knowing that you're not just mentally enriching your dog, you're mentally enriching yourself too, and become your dog. I mean, I love that Nelson Hodges exercise of follow the dog, man, and it's great. It's remember what Tyler and I were saying about earlier about becoming the dog and understanding that dog on his level, not overlaying your perception on the dog, but seeing how that dog sees the world through their eyes. Get down on your crawl around like a dog. No.
But even like, as far as like relationship is concerned, and this is like, I've never been to Nelson's workshop. I like Nelson. He's on the board of directors with me. He's a great guy. I've just never been to his workshop. But like I was in the woods with my dogs on Friday, and they both found some little hole cavern where there must be some chipmunks maybe living, and they were super into it, right? And so instead of just walking and saying they'll catch up with me, I go over there and I'm like, hey, what'd you find? What? And I pretend I'm really interested in it too. And it's like, it's stupid, but like at the same time, like what does your best friend do? Like if you're really into something and they don't actually care that much, but they know how much you care about it, they'll be engaged in the conversation and they'll like pretend to be interested because they freaking love you and they care about you. And that's part of what makes them an awesome friend. And that's part of what gives you such a strong relationship. We do it with our spouses. Like my wife indulges me all the time about dog stuff. She doesn't care, but she indulges me, right? And I think it's the same thing. Like become the dog. Like my dogs think this hole in the ground is super interesting, so I'm gonna go over and check it out. I'm not gonna call them away from it. I'm gonna go like, "What'd you find? Cool. What's in there? Let's take a look." And my dogs are like, "Oh, wow, dude, you like this too? Awesome!" And like. That goes so many ways. We had a dog in one time that was like super duper fearful, and the guy could only afford like 2 weeks of board and train. This dog, I really felt needed more, and we were like getting deep into week 1, and like we couldn't really interact with this dog at all. And finally, maybe 4 days in, I was able to get the dog close enough to me to get a slip leash over its head because we weren't even touching the dog up to that point. Wow. He would just be loose in the yard with us. So I finally got the slip lead on, and I was like, I'm going for a walk, and I took him to the park. And I saw that he was interested in the stick on the ground. So I went over and I picked it up and I threw it and we chased it together. And he stopped at one point and like looked at me.
Like, what the heck?
And you could see he was like, oh. And then like just ran over, jumped on me, was like licking me all over. And we were best friends from that point on because he's like, dude, you like sticks? I like sticks. Holy crap. And like we're best buddies.
Never knew.
Yeah, exactly. It's silly stuff, but it's just a relationship. It's like any other relationship,
Yeah, becoming a dog, man. I mean, it's just like rolling around wrestling with the kids, dressing up on Halloween or whatever. It's just part of that experience that they have. And let me see. Is it cruel to take a dog out in the woods and muzzle off leash?
I don't think so. I think it's better than not going to the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can't trust that dog,
make sure the dog's comfortable with the muzzle. That's all.
Say that again, Tyler.
Just take the time to make sure the dog is conditioned to the muzzle, that they're comfortable wearing it. And then, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of muzzles these days. Like I said, I was stupid when I was younger and didn't use them a lot. Now I use them a ton because it allows people to put their dogs into those situations and get the exposure and allow. I think it's one of the biggest problems in dog behavior right now is people try and treat behavior problems by isolating the dog, whether it's keeping them away from things, or it's like, okay, this dog doesn't like other dogs, or this dog doesn't like people. Like I see this a lot with people. My dog doesn't like people. So the solution from the trainer is when people are around, put your dog in a downstay, right? But the dog never then gets to interact with
and learn
the people. So how are they going to learn about them and become comfortable with them? But you can't do that interaction and exploration without the muzzle, right? And so the muzzle is a crucial part of that rehabilitation if you want the dog to become truly rehabilitated. Not just like, oh, my dog can be around people now and not kill him because he's in a downstay. Like that's not rehabilitation. It's management. Like at least the dog's in your home still, but But if you really want the dog to become comfortable with people, they have to be able to freely interact and to freely engage. So yeah, muzzles, rock on. Like, take your dog. Like, yes, if your dog needs a muzzle in the woods, do it. Like, you're awesome. And I always tell people, muzzle doesn't mean bad dog. Muzzle means responsible owner.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. You know, and we need to be able to trust our dogs too, and that takes work, and it takes building this. You know, but we don't want to set up other dogs for failure and that dog for failure as well if we can't trust them, if they're not where we need them to be.
And if you have a dog that's been aggressive in the past, then you're going to need some rehabilitation too, as far as how you feel emotionally in the circumstances that would cause aggression. And the muzzle helps the human to be able to relax and to have enough experiences that are positive to change how that experience is represented emotionally to them.
Yep. Yeah, and that takes work. I mean, that's and recognizing those thresholds and overwhelm and knowing that dog and that particular dog that's at the end of your leash. Colleen says, what I really love about this conversation is that it demonstrates that dogs are not a one or the other proposition. If I remember correctly, Suzanne had chosen not to use prog collars, but Tyler will use them. Can and do learn from one another. Absolutely.
Oh, I learn tons from positive only trainers all the time. Yeah. All the time.
Yep. And then that's a great point, Bill Church. We tend to have our heads buried in dog stuff all the darn time. Dude, I like that you asked me that question, man. And that's what I was saying. When you went away, I was telling people, did you notice how interrupted I was and how I was like, oh my gosh, like it got me out of this work zone that I get into with the dog. And you just kind of get laser focused, which is good. I mean, we're passionate about this, but, you know, I appreciate that. And so, and they were talking about, they discussed that book in their book club. And then there's another book here, Rough Love.
Yeah, Susan Garrett. Yep.
Rough Love by Susan. I can't remember where, I can't see where it is here. Susan Garrett.
Yep.
Rough Love by Susan Garrett. Okay. And then we are, yes, we have, wears a muzzle, long line, confident when walking. I'm great. Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I first off, I want to thank you, Tyler. Thank you for your time today, man. I know you're a busy dude, and I think this conversation went really well. And I'm going to put on the screen again, considerthedog.com. And so people can make sure to visit considerthedog.com to sign up for the tutorials that will be up and coming, and you get the content from all the experts. And then if they want to get a hold of you, Tyler, how do they do that? What's the best way to do that?
So I'm a super hard guy to get a hold of because I wear a lot of hats. So I'll be super straightforward. I don't answer like dog training advice through emails and stuff like that. I just can't. I don't have the time. If somebody's interested in enrolling their dog in one of our like training programs for the dog, connect with your Canine or buffalodogtraining.com. Both those URLs will take you to the same place. So that's my training business, Connect with Your Canine. And full disclosure, I don't do private lessons that much anymore or classes. I coach my staff. And so I'm involved in all the training, but you're working with my staff primarily. And then as far as like more professional kind of stuff, seminars, workshops, my streaming stuff, tylermuto.com, TYLERMUTO.com. Sort of my like personal professional thing. I've also 2 corresponding Facebook pages, Canine Connection Buffalo on Facebook, and then Tyler Muto, dog trainer, speaker, coach on Facebook. I try to keep the Canine Connection one more like geared for the average dog owner, and then the Tyler Muto one is kind of more like professional stuff, and also just like my personal interests and musings and all that fun stuff. And of course, Instagrams, blah blah blah, all that fun stuff, blogs, yay. Consider the Dog's my new project, so I'll be spending a tremendous amount of time on that. And that's it, and that's me.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time today, Tyler. And we just got a comment. Your staff is awesome. And another one of the best live broadcasts. What 2 amazing people to chat together. Love learning about you guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, Anita. It was great to have you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Take care until next time.
Thanks so much, Joel. I appreciate you having me on here, man.
Oh yeah, of course. And can visit considerthedog.com, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.